breaking up is really difficult to do. I mean, it sucks, whether we're talking about divorce or a long-term relationship where you share a child. If you don't I always say if you don't have kids, it's a little bit easier because you can just, it's still painful, but you can just cut and go and you don't have to see the person again. But when you have kids, you're tied. But, once you have that child and you're tied together, you just don't really have any other options. If you break up, you've got to deal with it and you've got to see the other person. If you're the left spouse or partner in your breakup, as Thomas and I both were, I think that part of our
being the left spouse. It does.
You're about to be the left spouse again if you don't quit interrupting me. I think the tendency is for us to cling to the old relationship. That's your initial.
I'm not afraid of you.
You say that till the microphone's off. But I think our tendency is to cling to the old relationship because, it's just this immediate. It's sort of like you're blindsided with it, and it always feels that way, I think, for the left spouse, no matter how much, my ex-husband and I, we were fighting and having conflict and all that kind of thing, but really the whole marriage had kind of been that way. So,
what difference does today
I really didn't understand why are we getting a divorce now? And he's like, well, I haven't been happy for a while. Really? Because we've been married 17 years. It's not like you haven't had some time to process this. Right. But I think our initial reaction is that desperation and, that desire to kind of like hold it all together. Oh my God, it's falling apart and I got to like hold it all together. And you want to cling to that old relationship. And, in my experience, I mean, that's usually just a Band-Aid because honestly, we have people that come in and they're trying to figure out what to do and should they or shouldn't they, and they're seeking advice. And many, many times those people leave, they go back, they work on the relationship only to come back 6 months, a year, 2 years later and say, you know what, I tried and it's just not working. I think you hit a point of no return. Trying to cling to that old relationship actually creates more conflict. And, for me, a lot of it was, he had affairs. And so the way that I clung to the old relationship was also by trying to figure out what he was doing. Where is he? What is he doing? Who is he talking to?
Yeah.
Is he, I would be out at 2 a.m. driving through San Diego trying to figure out where he was at.
That's insanity.
It's insanity, right? Like, yeah. I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego, but let me just tell you, if you don't live here, big city, probably not going to find your spouse.
Probably not going to find, there's over a million people living in San Diego. So.
Yeah, and I was insane. I would be out driving around and, so you're desperate to want to cling to that old relationship. And the other thing I think we do a lot is we beg them not to leave.
Right.
Yeah,
I tried that.
Did you?
Yeah, it didn't work.
How'd that work for you?
Thankfully, as it turned out.
Yeah, because you tell the story of where, like, you butter candy and...
Yeah.
You don't ever buy me candy, by the way.
That's because, candy's not good for you.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's not what I was expecting you to say.
I did buy flowers.
That's true. That's true. You did buy flowers. So, honestly, I think if leaving spouses were honest, they would say, most of the time, there's nothing that other. Well, we just don't. This isn't a conversation you have, and I think
it's just a joke.
I think they would say they're not. There's nothing the other person can do. Right. I don't think there's anything I could have done at that point that would have changed my ex-husband's mind because it wasn't about me. It was about him.
Right. And that's essentially what my ex-wife said.
Yeah.
Is, I'm sorry, I'm not changing my mind.
Right.
I know this hurts you, and I'm not changing my mind.
Right. And really, that was the kinder approach.
Agreed.
Yeah, because mine was 2 years of emotional roller coaster up and down. We're going to fix it. Oh, we're not. Oh, we might. Oh, we're not.
You're hot and you're cold. You're yes and you're no.
And emotionally, that's brutal
for
the person that's clinging to that relationship and holding on.
Yeah, it is brutal. Although it was brutal also to be begging and have her be completely stoned. It's a different kind of brutal, but
At least it was over faster, though.
yeah, it certainly was.
Yours was over much faster.
Especially after she moved out.
Yeah.
Then it was quiet.
Nobody yelling at you. You hear that? That's the sound of nobody yelling at me.
That's right.
So, if we're not clinging to the old relationship and we decide, okay, I get it's over, we're going to move on, a lot of times what people do is they repeat their old relationship patterns.
Right. Yeah, mine was damsel in distress. Mm-hmm. That's the one I kept doing over and over again.
Yeah.
And as Tammy loves to say, you can't fix people.
Right.
You can't.
What happens is you go through this breakup and you're so desperate for the pain to stop. I mean, the pain is so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah.
I can't even. I used to tell my mom, I would say, Mom, you could cut my right arm off and I would not be in any more physical pain than the emotional pain that I am in right now. And, I've shared before, I was literally a crumpled heap on the bathroom floor. I mean, there were days I couldn't function, and frankly, being a mom to 2 boys was the only thing that got me out of bed a lot of days.
Right.
And, I think we're so desperate for that pain to stop that we kind of tend to latch on to the first person that comes along, because now suddenly here's this new person who is interested in us, who is paying attention, who's saying kind things, who we're having fun with, who, stops the pain, the fear of being alone. All those things go away with a new relationship. And so
temporarily, yes.
Temporarily. There's the word, temporarily.
Yeah.
Until you find out that this is just a new crazy.
Yeah, oh goodness. I thought
and they're as screwed up as the old crazy.
I thought when you put in your notes, find a new crazy, that's what you said you were going to do.
No.
No. And I was going to say, that hurts my feelings.
Don't read my notes out loud. That's confusing to people.
Okay, sorry.
But we after you've been in this new relationship for a while, you start to, if you haven't dealt with anything and you've just used a new relationship as a Band-Aid, you'll start to see patterns emerge to where you're in a similar thing. It's just like Thomas was saying, for himself emotionally, he repeated that pattern, although the circumstances look slightly different. And then what happens is you're going through another painful breakup down the road.
Yes.
Because you've used repeating the old pattern as a way of stopping the current pain.
Yeah, you got to break the cycle, I guess.
You have to break the cycle. And the problem is that breaking the cycle involves facing your own issues. You have to deal with your own stuff. You have to hold up the mirror. And the problem with holding up the mirror is that's the most painful. Right. Clinging to the old relationship is a way of trying to avoid the pain. Substituting in a new relationship is a way of stopping the pain. And holding up the mirror means the pain's going to go on for a little while.
It's going to go on a little while. But you need to take that step back into independence.
Right.
Because there's nothing, in a way, more unattractive than a whiny, dependent person.
Right.
That's an immature person. That's
right.
a person that can't handle their own junk.
Right. And this is going to be the most beneficial in the long term, because handling that is going to enable you to then step into a healthy relationship that does have that interdependence.
Right.
I always say that I think one of the key things when I met you is, I had only been separated for about 6 months, but my marriage had been falling apart for over 2 years, and I had been in individual therapy at that point for over 2 years.
Yes.
So I had been trying to learn and deal with my own stuff, and I don't think we're ever done. I don't think you ever hit a point where you're just like, oh, I've arrived and I don't need any more help. I think it's a continual lifelong thing as you mature and you try to go to the next level with yourself and, get more emotional intelligence and more maturity and all that. It's an ongoing process. But definitely for me at that point, it started with some good old-fashioned therapy to figure out, I remember sitting with her and saying, you know, I can't figure this out. Like my ex-husband is a jerk. My boss is a jerk, and I know this story. I didn't say jerk, but you know, it's somebody on one of the single parents group the other day posted and said that I sorry guys, I'm a little tongue twisted today again, but I'm part of this single parent group online, and I'm as a resource for, you know, people for questions around, you know, custody and co-parenting and court and all kinds of emotions and all kinds of different issues. And somebody came on the other day and she called her ex-husband an ex-hole. And I just love that. I thought, I'm going to use that, so I'm going to use that. If she wants credit,
this is a family show.
If she's listening and she wants credit, she can call me for that, and I'll say her name, but I'm not going to say who it was. But
so you can do this stuff too.
Yeah. So she called him an ex-hole, and that's how I felt. It's like, you know, I have this ex-hole, and I have a boss who's a hole, and
right,
everybody around me, I'm surrounded by jerks. What's going on?
Yeah, you're surrounded by monkeys' butts.
Like that. And my therapist looked at me and she said, well, I have one question for you. And I said, okay. And she said, why do you keep surrounding yourself with these people? And I was like...
It reminds me of that scene in Spaceballs. I knew it. I'm surrounded by...
yeah, by holes, right? Yeah. And it just, you know, that so hit me between the eyes. I mean, that's been, I don't know, 13, 14, I still remember it. Yeah. And it just hit me right between the eyes. She said, why do you keep surrounding yourself with these people? And it was like, oh, I have options. I don't have to do this, you know. But I needed somebody to, part of what she did is she put that responsibility back on me. You're the one that made this choice to be in this relationship. You made the choice to take this job. You made the choice, you know, you made choices that got you here. So if you don't like where you are, make different choices.
Yeah.
What divorce tends to do is everything crumbles, right? We're left with a pile of ashes. And the goal in all of this is to eventually emerge from those ashes, you know, like what do they say, like a phoenix, you know, or whatever,
like a phoenix rising
from the ashes and build this, you know, post-divorce life that looks like something like what you want your life to look like, as opposed to, I think when we're young, a lot of times we just kind of, whatever happens to us is what's happening to us and we go along with it. But once everything crumbles and you're able to start the foundation over, you can actually be intentional about your choices and about those building blocks and enable yourself to build the life that you really want.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon. Turn